Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another portion of the interview series of the Second City Detroit documentary, the interview series via Zoom. I'm joined here by alumni Joe James, who is joining me here. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks,
Good, good. James is joining us. He is an Emmy award-winning writer and currently teaches comedy writing and improvisation at the Second City and Columbia College. And he has written also for Jellyvision's You Don't Know Jack, SNL's Weekend Update, as well as many others. He's also published 3 books of his stage work, 365 sketches, 50 plays, and 7 deadly plays. And he has a cat problem, which I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more about. So, Joe, welcome. How are you?
Great. It's a beautiful day. I'm in Chicago. It's a beautiful day today. We've had such a stretch of really horrible weather, and now it's like great.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting it pretty good here. It's been in about the 60s and 70s all week. And the last couple of weekends been reaching in the 80s, you know. So it's been a really good thing. Great to have you here. Once again, in addition to being connected with Second City directly, you are also a member and director of the National Touring Company, the producing artistic director of Second City Detroit, which we'll talk more about. And then you're also director of the Las Vegas company. So go ahead, Joe. And just my first question for you, just to kind of kick things off, is, what do you typically tell people when they ask you about Second City Detroit?
Well, boy, that's a good question. Because like even today, like a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, my experience of it, like when I was in the touring company, Second City Detroit had been around for a few years by then. And to be absolutely honest, I think everybody in Chicago treated it like a redheaded stepchild. And including myself, because I just kind of went along with the flow. Like, what is this Second City Detroit thing? It's not Toronto. It's not us. And so we really weren't giving it much credence, sadly, unfortunately. And then I was asked to go there to produce and direct, and I still was kind of in that old mindset. And then saw one of their shows and was blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, this place is great. And I think for me the distinction was, in Chicago, it gets a little squirrely. If you're an understudy for the touring company, you want to be in the touring company. If you're in the touring company, you want to be on the ETC stage or the main stage. If you're on the ETC stage, you want to be on the main stage. If you're on the main stage, you want to be on SNL. So it's kind of like this, nobody's really happy with where they're at. And I think Detroit was so removed from that it was definitely more ensemble based. And you could clearly see that everybody loved each other and were having a great time. And that attracted me. That's why I took the job. I was like, yeah, I want to play with these people. This is great.
Okay. And during your stint as the producing artistic director in Second City Detroit, what did kind of the day in the life of that look like, and how long was that stint? Give us a little more info about that.
Well, the producing artistic director at Second City Detroit was an odd role.
Okay.
Here it is, a kind of a nutshell. And this is actually kind of fed into that thinking of, oh, Second City Detroit's not really a Second City kind of feeling mentality that was going on in Chicago. Second City was brought there by Olympic Entertainment, which is a family-run organization. And one of the sons loved Second City and moved a few mountains to bring it to Detroit. And then unfortunately he got sick with I believe it was a tumor in his brain tumor, and so he ended up like leaving the company. And so Second City kind of lost its shepherd a little bit. And so we have this situation where Olympia Entertainment's paying the bills, but Second City still is Second City and owns the rights to all the material and have creative control. And also, while I was there was no contract. This was
Right.
all like kind of a handshake agreement.
Mm.
So day in the life was a little unusual. Like a lot of times I'd just be on the phone to Kelly Leonard in Chicago and go, what do I do now?
Just
um,
winging it as you go, you know.
kinda. And uh, so mostly I focused on the cast of the main stage, the cast of the touring company that we had, uh, people that did our local business uh, corporate workshops and shows, and
Hmm.
the training center. So those were areas where I felt really comfortable and also felt like I could make some impact. So my day to day really was just occasionally dealing with Olympia Entertainment, who also
Hmm.
treated me like a redheaded stepchild. So karma came around.
Right.
Um, and then, but I just I did whatever I could to to put the best people on stages wherever I could do that, and also to foster talent in the training center.
Okay. And speaking of that, could you maybe tell us maybe about maybe some of the best relationships, or at least people you met there just through your stint, as through that position, through Second City, Detroit, whether it was team partners, other fellow directors, maybe different, longtime mentors, or just different people associated with Second City, Detroit that kind of stick out.
Well, lots of people. I mean, like I said, my initial uh, contact with Second City Detroit was seeing the main stage show. So that was a show that
Mm-hmm.
Keegan Michael Key was in,
Mm-hmm.
Naima Funk was in, and Mark Evan Jackson was a strong part of. He was the music director at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and Margaret Edwardowski was brilliant in it. So like these are the people that I'm like I want these people to be my friends.
Yep. Yeah.
um, Antoine McKay. So like so long term, like those people, I don't think the person I probably have the most contact with is Antoine, because we're both here in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody else is it's like pretty much like through the social media, Facebook and Twitter. Like PJ and I
Mm-hmm.
communicate a lot through Facebook, and his brother uh, Peter. Boy, can you edit
Okay.
that out that I did that?
All right.
uh,
So, tell me a little bit about the time when, I know once again you were Chicago based and Detroit was kind of like this weird sort of offshoot thing going on. Were
yeah.
you still working with Second City Detroit? They made a move from basically downtown Detroit to the suburbs at a location, and it's called Novi. So, do
Right.
you recall working during that time, like when they made that move between
Well,
different centers?
I left before that move got made.
Mm-hmm.
I I was at Second City Detroit for about 2 years, and after about 2 years, I got a little bit frustrated trying to deal with the corporate side
Mm-hmm.
of Olympia Entertainment, and just felt like I was spinning my wheels for the last few months. So I made moves to go back to Chicago to direct. That's why when I directed the touring company, and also went out
Mm-hmm.
to the Vegas company, which was pretty new at the time, and did some directing there. And then threw myself into teaching, which is probably the biggest thing I discovered I loved while at Second City. Is I love teaching. So I really I did not have anything to do with the Novi move, although I
Mm-hmm.
at one point the guy who was production contact at Olympia
Yep.
Entertainment um, drove me around to places because I think he was thinking ahead and was looking at places for us, or looking to see if we could move us out of Hockey Town and
Mm-hmm.
put us into more uh, theatrical space. And I think I looked at this place in Novi. It was like you had to walk through a grocery store and up some stairs to get to it. And I thought the actual space itself was kind of nice, but I didn't like the strip mall feel or the things you had to do
Mm-hmm.
to get to it. It felt off to me. So No,
Yeah. It was kind of one of those things where, like I said, I found out about Second City Detroit. I was a few years into college. So I remember still seeing the Second City sign that was downtown, even though it had been gone a while. And I think I had a chance to at least go by the venue when it was maybe just had closed, but they still kind of had Second City signage and things like that. So I kind of felt like I sort of missed the boat on that. So what would you say also, maybe some of your greatest moments, at least as far as like, and this could go as far as Second City, Chicago as well. What were like maybe some of your proudest or greatest moments working as an artistic director with Second City, Detroit or Chicago?
to me, like one of my favorite moments was when I first got there. We had to do some recasting, so that's not my
Mm,
proudest moment. Is I actually had to let some people go, which was a horrible thing to start off my tenure with. But at another point, I needed to bring on somebody, and so
mm-hmm.
I hired somebody who was a server for Second City Detroit. She
Okay.
was taking classes and had done some showcases, and she was the first person I hired, and that's Mary Beth Monroe, who
Mm-hmm.
I just adore and think she's hysterical, and she's doing really great out in LA. So that's a proud moment for me, was hiring Mary Beth.
Okay.
um, Other moments, like I feel like it's not so much a moment, but the training center at Second City Detroit had gone a little rogue, away from what Chicago is doing. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
remember right, they did like 6 levels, but level 5 was learning the Herald, um, which is a long form that's mostly associated
Mm-hmm.
with Improv Olympic, or IO as it's known. And it was,
Okay.
no problem with people learning long form. I think it was actually valuable, but it was odd that it was like the last thing you learned before going into level 6, which was producing a sketch review. So this thing's a little bit off, and so I kind of got under the hood and
Mm-hmm.
tinkered around and got the training center in Detroit a little more in line with what is happening in was happening in Chicago and even
Okay.
Toronto too a little bit, and then also added a writing program. So I was really excited about that. Gave the touring company more responsibility, so they had more opportunities to perform and show their stuff and develop. And another thing I feel like I made a conscious effort of. This is another thing there was this weird thing going on in Hayward where at Second City Detroit, and it's not this isn't the actors or anybody. This is like
Mm-hmm.
again the administrative side. Kind of
Right.
felt like you either were one of us and we're on our main stage, or you know get lost. It's like
Oh.
you're either one of us or you're a competitor, or
Mm.
you're not good enough. So they weren't nurturing talent in the training center or the touring company, but also there were like a few um, improv groups in the area. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rogers Neighborhood, I think, was one. I might be. They may have done a twist on that name, but I think that was the name of one. Um, the Comedy Castle in Royal Oak had a
Mm-hmm.
company that performed once a week. And so all these people just kind of felt isolated, and I made a concerted effort to like, no, come on in, let's play, let's share ideas, let's
Mm-hmm.
and Margaret Evertowski started up a program at Planet Ant,
Oh
which
yeah.
was great, very successful, and they focused more on long form. So I feel like that's something I was really proud of. Like I felt like I brought a little more community to the improv and sketch business in Detroit.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear because yeah, because once again, I mean, I think sometimes we might think, oh, that only kind of runs in LA or New York, but yeah, a lot of times what you think could be a community could become a very competitive. Everyone's their own island. So I think
Right.
that's good reminders about like bringing people together. Hey, rising tide lifts all boats. Sort of thing. So what would you have, Joe, as far as like any aspiring uh, actors out there that may want to try getting into improv, stage performing, what advice would you have for them? In today's market versus landscape versus when you started.
Right. Well, I mean, it's definitely all more accessible. Like you can take improv classes online, and you can learn a lot from that. It's not the same as on stage and with people right next to you,
Mhm.
but you can
Right.
learn your craft from there. And the same with sketch comedy writing. Um, you can do that online as well. But I think what's really useful is finding like-minded people. Is like I think sometimes people forget. Like they'll look at somebody on SNL that they really admire and want to do what
Hmm.
that person does, but that person learned at Second City or learned at the Groundlings, and they made friends. And it's like what you're saying, uh, rising all boats. It's like that. You need to learn to find like-minded people and network sideways, because these are the people that are going to be on SNL, tomorrow or doing their own
Hmm.
projects, and they're the people you want to be friends with. They're going to be like, I'm going to call my buddy Hayward for this because I think he'd be perfect because they know you and they want to work with you.
Yeah, that's a great term, networking sideways. Just like out in Hollywood, like the assistants that you're talking to today, or the production assistants, are going to be the producers and
Yep,
development executives tomorrow. So yeah, I think
absolutely
the
right.
networking sideways concept is key. You know.
Well, even at Second City, like I said, Mary Beth Monroe was a server in the nightclub in the theater. A lot of people were box office folks that moved up, and
Hmm.
it's true for Chicago as well. Like you don't know that this person isn't just bussing your table. They have hopes and dreams and ideas. So that's be kind to everybody.
Yeah. Well said. So, tell me, Joe, about any upcoming projects you're working on, ventures, anything you'd like to plug and share with us, to the audience. What are you up to?
Well, I'm mainly focusing on writing right now, and
Mhm.
you can find a lot. I do a satirical weekly column called "The Minutes of Our Last Meeting," and you can
Okay.
find that at literateape.com.
Okay.
So that keeps my kind of satire comedy chops up, because it's usually something topical, and I try to find interesting angles on it. I'm also like, I don't know. It's been weird because of the pandemic the last 2 years. Like just before lockdown, I had a show that was about to go into Tech Week, where like
Hmm.
that's the week before we open, and we
Yeah.
are just about to go into tech, and everything shut down.
Oh
And
man.
like so we, you know,
Was
uh,
that in Chicago or
it
LA?
was in Chicago. It was a show
Chicago.
that some friends and I took to Edinburgh in
Mhm.
2019, and we wanted to remount it here and add some material to it. So we had been rehearsing, rewriting, and all dressed up and ready to go. And then
Ah.
and and I think we just we've lost some momentum on it. We could probably still get it going again, but everybody's a little over here and over there, so we got to figure out the logistics if we want to get that remounted. But I write plays too, and small sketches. There's a magazine called The American Bystander that I've written a few things for, and it's a kind of a National Lampoon magazine from
Hmm.
the olden days. National Lampoon from like the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
Um, but what's interesting about American Bystander is that this guy's old school. Like you can only buy it as a magazine. It's a real high
Mm.
quality magazine,
Wow.
but there's no online presence of all the different articles and stuff. You can find information about it, but
I
the
love it.
magazine,
That's being a rebel, analog rebel. Like,
yeah,
hey.
Analog Rebel. You could get a PDF. That's the most technical thing you could do. You could get a PDF of the magazine.
It's called the National Bystander,
The American Bystander.
the American Bystander. Okay, check that out. Interesting. Okay, and then finally, Joe, can you maybe tell us a little bit about maybe some sketch comedy, either writing or improv greats, maybe from the past, maybe mentors of yours that you admire, and what do you think their legacy kind of means to improv, and and how? I know this is kind of a loaded question. And it's kind of like a two-parter. Yeah, just answer that first. Then I have one more. Yeah.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to be old enough to have taken my first improv workshop with Del Close.
Mm.
who, like, if anybody has learned anything about improv, you probably have heard about Del Close.
Mhm.
He worked at Second City for a long time and developed the Herald that we talked about earlier at Improv Olympic. And Del was also kind of known as an improv guru. And I caught him at a time where uh, he was still kind of at the top of his game. So I learned a lot. It was just a 1 day workshop. It's like, so I did workshop during the day and saw a sketch review done by the touring company that night. This is actually in Monroe, Michigan. I
Mhm.
drove up from Ohio in a van with a bunch of other high school friends, and we spent all day doing the workshop, and then I saw the show. And I was so blown away by the show that I got other friends, and we came back because they were there all weekend. We came back on Sunday to the matinee to
Mhm.
watch it again, and I'm just like, I want this. I want this so bad. So that's
Oh,
where I became really hooked on Second City because it was new. I mean, I heard about it, but I didn't really know about it. So I got hooked on Second City and also live sketch reviews. Like, this is what I want to do. And then at Second City, a long period of time passed before I did any classes at Second City. But once I did, there was a guy on the main stage named Michael McCarthy, who what's interesting because I talked about the trajectory people tend to do to get to the main
mhm.
stage. Michael had actually written for Saturday Night Live and, perhaps more impressively, Sesame Street
Mm. How about that?
before getting hired by Second City. And at that time, it was all just improv classes, and nobody was doing a writing class. So Michael
Mm.
was the first person to do writing classes, and so I learned so much from him about uh, uh, economy. Like 11-page sketch is probably not going to go over really well. Get it down to
Mhm.
3 to 5 pages. And he also had a wonderful system for writing that avoided burnout, where basically you would like do some warm up stuff, and then you'd write for 45 minutes, take a break. Write for 45 minutes, take a break. So I learned a lot from him. Like, don't burn out, don't burn yourself out, but also if you write every day, the comedy gods will bless you
Mhm.
and
Great way to put it.
send you ideas.
Awesome. That's awesome. Great nuggets and takeaways. Definitely has me inspired to continue my comedy writing craft and continue education, which is key. We always have to be growing and learning. So, Joe, as we wrap up here, what would you say? How would you like your sketch writing, or whether it's Second City, directing or the sketch writing? How would you want your legacy as far as comedy improv to be remembered? You know, people to look
Wow.
back, on your life. You
Wow.
know,
Well, at least fondly. I want people to fondly remember me.
yeah, fondly. I think a little more than fondly, but okay.
I mean, I love writing. The plays that I write are very based in sketch reviews. They almost always follow like a sketch review format. So that's something
Mhm.
I've learned from Second City is how to put a sketch review together, and I'm able to apply that to playwriting. So that's a lot of fun. So that's kind of, if I'm going to be known for something, I want to be known for like kind of having one foot in each world and bringing it together. Um,
Mhm.
and often in a lot of the plays, all right, there's moments where people can improvise, so that's built in too. So I don't know. I guess I want to be remembered as somebody who had just used the best of all the worlds that he played in.
All right. Well said. Well said. Well, thank you, Joe, for coming aboard with the third in our entry of the Second City Detroit interview series. And thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Hayward.